You're listening to the Club Lucha Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Club Lucha Podcast. It's really nice to see you again, and I want to thank everyone so much for the support and all the love you have shown Club Lucha and the first episode of this podcast. I'm very, very happy. I'm very thankful, and I'm excited to come back with another episode and hopefully make this into a very long-running series. Big thank you to my homie Mecha Dope for the new intro jingle. I really love it, and I hope that y'all do too. And before we get started, I just want to make y'all aware of our email address. In case you have any comments, concerns, thoughts, or feelings about the show, feel free to email me at theclublucha@gmail.com. That is theclublucha@gmail.com. And with that, let's jump right in. First, the Lucha news. So the biggest news first, Rush and Bandito have both left AAA. It seems that they both left for different reasons, however, kind of similar but different. So first, Rush, and he took to Facebook to announce that he has left AAA and he is now independent, fully independent in Mexico. There was some speculation online that this maybe had to do with AEW and the New Japan show Forbidden Door, but I think this is very unlikely. I think this is all just speculation, and I think it's not very good speculation. It seems more like a personal problem with AAA. He specifically mentions the mask versus hair match against LA Park that may have come to fruition. And he says that any promoter who wants to book that match should specifically put it on a contract and he'll sign it. So my thinking here is that he wasn't happy with the decision or the direction that AAA was taking with the Triple Mania tag match where he was teaming with LA Park against Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis. Maybe he felt like they would go through with him and LA Park losing and then those two being forced to have that lucha de apuestas. And maybe he didn't feel like the money was right, or that AAA was trying to get one over on him. Maybe, as he said, maybe there wasn't a written contract and this was all in handshake deals. We'll have to see how it plays out from here. For Bandito, his reasoning is also, I guess, more kind of personal as well. Again, probably not having to do anything with Forbidden Door. For this one, I was seeing where Lucha Blog, he went ahead and dashed a lot of people's hopes anyway regarding Forbidden Door. And if you don't follow Lucha Blog, I highly recommend it. He's on Twitter. He's on a lot of platforms. He has his own website as well. But go ahead, follow Lucha Blog. He's excellent at covering, what's happening, breaking news for Lucha. I don't know how he does it. He's just, phenomenal at it. And I follow him as well, and I read a lot of his stuff. So he's great. Shout out to him. If he ever wants to come on the show, I'd love that. But I don't really know him like that, and I'm not sure that he would really. I don't think he knows me at all either. So, but if anybody listening knows him personally and he would like to come on and just talk a little bit, I look up to him a lot as a person who talks about Lucha Libre online, and he's done it for way longer than I have. And he's kind of an inspiration for why I even talk about it on here anyway. But he was talking about how Bandito's actually already booked for a show the same day as Forbidden Door. So I guess the hopes that he would get on that show are probably dashed unless he cancels his other booking, which I think is unlikely. The biggest reason, the reason that people are saying that Bandito is out of AAA is because he took a booking with The Crash, which The Crash is another promotion in Tijuana. And there seems to be a rule at AAA. You can't, maybe you could in the past, but you can no longer take bookings at The Crash. And he took one, and then, they told him, well, we don't need you anymore. And I think that's a shame for AAA because, Bandito is super talented, massively talented. And we see it, every week, every other week on AEW, primetime television. We see Bandito coming out, gaining more fans, and just being more recognized. And that sucks for AAA, but Bandito will be just fine. And I think in the long run, Rush will be just fine as well. Speaking of AEW and Bandito, he actually has a match Friday, which at time of recording, it is tonight against Takeshita, and it's on Rampage, AEW Rampage. I think it will probably be a really good match. Both guys massively talented. Not sure how it'll end. Probably Bandito will eat the pin, but and I will be watching and I will be enjoying that match. On the WWE side, not a ton really popping off in terms of lucha guys. Just a few things. First, Santos Escobar, he has qualified for the Money in the Bank match coming up. I personally would love to see him win it and cash in on somebody. But the way that they've been taking him, the direction they've been taking his character recently, it's not looking like it. It's not looking like it. It's not like I have a ton of confidence at this point in time. I do think the Money in the Bank match will be a great opportunity to show him off some more and build him up some more and really show fans and people that, Santos Escobar, he really is that guy. And I personally think that, he should be near the top, and maybe in a couple of years he will be. Maybe I'm just a bit impatient on that. On Raw, Los Lotharios, well, they're not on Raw anymore. They've jumped brands from Raw to NXT, which is a bit strange to me, but okay. And I say it's strange because they were just drafted to Raw. They weren't even like free agents like Baron Corbin and Mustafa Ali, who have shown up on NXT now. But to me, this says maybe WWE writers, creative, just doesn't have anything for them on Raw right now. So it could be positive. This could be a positive move. Get them on NXT, build them up some more, build them up again, and then bring them back to the main roster. If I had to put Los Lotharios anywhere right now, the timing is really weird because I think the best place they would go, and this is just this is fantasy booking, and if everybody loves a fantasy book, but if it was me, I'd put him on a heel version of the LWO, and that's going to be my big thing. That's going to be the thing I'm going to be pushing. Although I don't think the timing is right for a heel turn for the LWO yet. I do think a heel LWO would work better. It would be more interesting. They could do more with a heel LWO, like the original LWO, which kind of worked as heels trying to, gain sympathy in a heelish way. LWO really isn't doing anything right now. They came out to congratulate Escobar after winning his Money in the Bank qualifier. But really since Backlash, they've kind of been on the back burner, which is fine. They had some really nice big moments of Backlash with Bad Bunny coming out to help him out. And, even with turning them heel, they don't have to be completely heel either. They can use like trickery and like bend the rules, kind of like, as an homage to the old LWO, who really didn't super play by the rules those brief months that they were around. But I think it would be fun. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We will not jump too much into fantasy booking or anything like that. We're going to wrap this up and jump over to our next segment where we're going to be taking a look at AAA's When Worlds Collide 1994 pay-per-view. Okay, so if you follow me over on TikTok, you know I already did a short video talking about this event, When Worlds Collide, but I feel like it is super, super important. I think that just in the history of wrestling and lucha libre, there's a lot to talk about in this event, and there's almost a part of me that says, this event is a little overlooked for how good it was. And, I feel like the exposure that it gave for a ton of people, I do think it's a little bit overlooked. It is, but I don't want to say that in a way like this is a hidden gem, because it's not a hidden gem. A ton of people watched it. A ton of people talk to it to this day, or talk about it to this day. Some of the matches that happened on that card, the guys that came out of that event looking fantastic and who would later go on to have just fantastic careers as well. But I do want to talk about it on this episode, look at it a little bit deeper for people who may not be super familiar with the event, maybe have not watched it yet, or maybe they watched it and they just want to, talk about it, hear about it a little bit, some interesting parts. It's not going to be like a match by match review. I'm not going to tell you everything that happens in every single match, but I do want to be taking a look at some of the more interesting facets of each match, things that really stood out to me, highlighting what made this event so good, and maybe why things went down the way they went down for this event. So the first thing I want to talk about is how this event really came to be. It is a AAA basically AAA branded pay-per-view, but it is put on together with WCW back in 1994. It's a collaboration. If you had to say how much each company did for the show, everything that you saw basically on the show mainly fell on AAA. It featured almost all AAA talent, AAA storylines, AAA branding mainly. And, everything was basically AAA except for some of the promotion and the, back-end production of the show. Because on the front end, like I was saying, it's all AAA, it's all AAA. But on the back end, it's WCW, like the distribution kind of part. WCW helped get this show on pay-per-view. They had those connections. AAA did not have those connections for the U.S. In fact, this was the first, and let me think of the best way to phrase this. It's the first wrestling show by a foreign promotion aired on U.S. pay-per-view. So before this, it wasn't like anybody else outside the U.S. was putting pay-per-views on in the U.S. And WCW really, really helped AAA get this on pay-per-view in America. And Eric Bischoff, he was one of the producers at the time he was one of the guys helping run WCW back in '94, and for a lot of its existence. And he's done a lot of interviews about the show, and some of the things that he's revealed is just really interesting stuff. And I will say that if you have not listened to some of his comments on this show, search them. They're on YouTube. Look up Eric Bischoff Eric Bischoff, When Worlds Collide 1994, right? He talks about it on his podcast, 93 Weeks. Pretty interesting podcast, hearing what he has to say and what he thought about the event, how it came to be, and all of that. But, one of the things that he talks about is how important it was to hit the time limit for this pay-per-view, because, at this time, you really couldn't go over. They bought so much airtime with the pay-per-view providers, and it was 2 hours, 47 minutes, he says they had. They had to stick to that 2 hours, 47 minutes. It can't go longer than 2 hours and 47 minutes. If it does, it's getting cut off, and fans are going to miss out on, the ending of matches or, the ending of the show. But if you watch When Worlds Collide 94, you notice this show is not really near 2 hours and 47 minutes. It's 2 hours and around 10 or 11 minutes long. And it's because they did end it early. And Bischoff talks about that on his show. It was ended a bit early, but if you watch it, it doesn't really hurt the quality of the show too much. There are some matches I think that you can tell they cut some to, maybe they were afraid of hitting that time limit. And a lot of the matches on the card deviate from the usual 2 out of 3 falls that's so popular in Lucha Libre. And the only match actually that does the 2 out of 3 falls on this card is Octagon and Hijo del Santo against Eddie Guerrero and Art Barr. And that's the only one that's 2 out of 3. And I don't know if this was a AAA thing, because I know now AAA doesn't really do a lot of 2 out of 3. That's more of a CMLL. But at this time, I'm not super confident if it was just because of the time limit or because maybe AAA was like, well, let's just do 1 falls and then the Lucha de Apuestas, let's do a 2 out of 3 falls. Another thing you'll notice about this is the commentary, the version you can find on YouTube. I'm going to say this. The commentary is in English, but you could also get it in Spanish. You can get both English and Spanish commentary for the show. This was the commentary debut for Mike Tenay. So if you love his work, I think you'll really love the commentary on this show. And he's very knowledgeable about Lucha Libre, and he's really knowledgeable about the show that is going on and that he's watching. He knows a lot about the history, the storylines that were happening. So whoever got him up to speed on that, or maybe he himself went back and watched some to get up to speed. They did a great job on that, and Mike Tenay really, really did good on this show. It was a sold-out event in LA, the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, 13,000 people, and it was very electric. The audience, and I'm going to mention this later on in the show when we're talking about some of the matches, but the audience was fantastic. For many people, this was their first exposure to Lucha Libre. especially people who were not Mexican, people who were not already fans. But one bad thing about this show is if you're somebody in the year 2023 wanting to watch it, is there's not really any high quality versions of this event in full. It's not on Peacock. It's not on the WWE Network. And I'm not really sure why. I'm kind of sure why. It probably has something to do with the rights to the show, who owns the rights, which I assumed that because WCW was distributing the event, that the WWE would own it now and that you would be able to watch it through their streaming library. I do know that the WWE has posted matches from this event on their YouTube page. You can find a couple of matches and highlights from this event, but you can't find the full event. There's only 5 matches on the card, and we're going to be going through them, talking about each one just for a bit. Again, I'm not going to do like reviewing the entire match start to finish. I feel like that's not really the purpose of this episode, or really the podcast in general, to do full match reviews, unless in the future we come up with a segment that's like doing match reviews. I think that would be more fun to do with a guest, but we will talk about some of the most interesting bits and some of the highlights from each match. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about the first one. So the first match is a minis tag match. It features the team of Mascarita Sagrada and Octagoncito against Espectrito and Cherito Estrada. I personally really like minis matches. A lot of people don't really care for them, and I feel like a lot of people are conditioned when they see the smaller wrestlers, the minis, that these are joke matches. These aren't real wrestling matches. This isn't a real lucha libre. And I disagree very heavily. I think the minis can put on a show with the best of wrestlers, right? I think the minis absolutely can put on fantastic matches. And looking at this match, we have one of the most famous minis, the first, Mascarita Sagrada. And something to remember is when we talk about the minis, a lot of them are based on a larger sized wrestler within the company. So all of the minis in this match were based on a larger sized wrestler in AAA or in Lucha Libre in general. All of them have a corresponding luchador that they're kind of representing, or I don't want to say mimicking, but it's like a smaller version of the wrestler. So this match really starts off with a lot of speed and a lot of intensity, and the crowd, like I mentioned earlier, is electric. They are really, really into it, especially the beginning of the match. Espectito and Mascarita Sagrada, they have some history against each other in LA already. I'm not sure how many people at this event probably went to the last time they were in LA and saw Mascarita Sagrada and Espectrito going at each other. But Mascarita Sagrada actually took Espectrito's mask just a few months before this event in LA as well. And this, I think, is a really, really good match. I said really twice, but I do think it's a really good match. Has some good spots. The crowd is really involved. There's a lot of cheers every time the Técnicos do something big. Every dive to the outside, every, really athletic maneuver that we see in the match, the crowd reacts. And that's essentially what we really want from any sort of wrestling match. We want the crowd to be into it. And it ends with Mascarita Sagrada getting a pin. He goes up to the top. He hits a moonsault. After the moonsault, he goes ahead and hits the pin. Octagoncito puts Cherito Estrada in the escalera, which is the finishing submission signature maneuver for Octagon. And like I said, if Octagon uses the move, then Octagoncito can also use the move. And it's a really, really solid way to start this event. Only 5 matches. We're already through the first. So match number 2, our second match, is billed as the Battle for Respect. 2 teams as well, another trios tag. Well, this one's a trios tag. The first one was just a regular tag. And the Rudo team is Fuerza Guerrera, Madonna's Boyfriend, and Psychosis. On the technical side, we have Rey Mysterio Jr., Latin Lover, and Heavy Metal. The first time I ever saw this match was on the WWE DVD Rey Mysterio, the Biggest Little Man. This match completely blew my mind the first time I watched it. I remember when they first announced that DVD, I was a kid. I was really young, and I really, really wanted it. I was so shocked. My parents got it for me. They let me actually get this DVD, and I think it was the first time. It wasn't the first time I ever watched AAA because I'd watched AAA before then, but it was the first time I saw Rey Mysterio in AAA, and it was this match. And weirdly enough, you can see this match on Peacock if you search in the WWE section for Rey Mysterio, the Biggest Little Man, and then you watch that collection. It does have this match. This is the first match, but it's very weirdly missing two matches that were on the DVD, but they are not on the network, that go directly after this one. It's two ECW matches, one with Psychosis and one with Juventud Guerrera. They were on the DVD, but they're not on the Peacock version of the DVD, if that makes sense. They're just completely left off. I don't know why either, because Psychosis, because ECW, they were both in ECW. They were ECW matches, and WWE owns the rights to ECW, so they have most, if not all, of the ECW library on Peacock, on the network. I'm not sure why these two matches are missing. I'm not sure why they took them out if they were already on this DVD, but you know what? That's a topic for another day. Let's jump back into this match. One of my favorite moments from this match is Madonna's boyfriend, Luis Piccoli, right? He jumps into the ring. So it starts off with, I think it's Rey Mysterio and Psychosis. They start the match. Rey gets Psychosis to the outside. Then Luis Piccoli jumps in against Rey. And it's kind of like Luis Piccoli's the big guy on the other trio. And he kind of just gets in the ring and kind of bullies Rey for a bit. Rey tries drop kicks. He tries jumping off the top. And it doesn't really do anything to Luis Piccoli. But then he tags in Latin Lover. Latin Lover, kind of like the big guy on the technical team. They go kind of to the middle of the ring. Latin Lover walks up. And this whole time, Luis Piccoli is a really funny dude because he's just dancing, kind of like breaking it down just whenever he can. And him and Latin Lover have like a mini dance battle just in the middle of the ring before they, start really getting into it. And Piccoli's dance moves throughout the entire match get me almost every time because he could move. He had some dance moves for real. Yeah, they're shown off in this match, and I really like them. Another thing about this match that I did think was a little bit strange, but I'm not sure I would change anything about it, is Fuerza Guerrera is on this team, but Juvi isn't. And Juvi was in AAA at the time, and Juvi had taken, I think, a title off of Rey just recently. So I would assume that they would have put Juvi and Fuerza together on this card. But if you watch the match, it doesn't hurt the match at all. I wouldn't take anybody out or replace anybody in this match. Psychosis and Luis Piccoli, like I said, they do a great job. Psychosis at this time, phenomenal. And for a long time, just a really great luchador. Luis Piccoli comes out, makes you laugh. And makes you feel like, he's a big guy who's the threat, kind of like the big guy threat on the team. The announcers throughout the entire thing, they talk about how, Rey Mysterio, this is going to be the future of wrestling. This is going to be the future of Lucha Libre. He could be at the top for the next 20 or 30 years. And they were right. They were 100% right. They nailed it, hit the nail right on the head. Perfect prediction. If we look at it now, actually, we see Rey Mysterio at the top. Well, he's not like a world champion, but he's still in the WWE and he's still putting on very good matches. And he's been relevant for as long as he have. To be relevant for as long as he has is, hell of a thing. They talk up Psychosis as well, and Psychosis again. They're praising his youth, they're praising his ability, how good he is in the ring, and he ended up having a hell of a career. He's still going in AAA. And, even though maybe he didn't stay in the WWE as long as Rey did, maybe he didn't get to, I guess, the heights, the peaks that Rey did, he still had a hell of a career. Psychosis, hell of a guy. And I enjoy his work as Psychosis, his work as Nicho el Millonario. He's done really well for himself. And going back and looking at this and seeing these guys predict this, they were right about both of these guys. The match itself is great. Love it. Intense. A lot of good spots, but it ends in a really anticlimactic way. There's a series of dives to the outside, and it ends up being Fuerza Guerrera and Heavy Metal in the ring. And Heavy Metal is kind of like working on Fuerza, and he goes to the top, and he misses a senton. And Fuerza just kind of walks over to him, puts him in some sort of joint lock. I don't know if it's Fuerza's finish. I think it was probably his submission. He just puts him in his submission kind of like nonchalant, and there wasn't really a struggle to get out or anything. It was like he put him in. A second later, Heavy Metal's tapping. The match just ends. It just felt really anticlimactic. It felt kind of abrupt, honestly. And I think it probably was a side effect of maybe these matches being one fall instead of 2 out of 3 falls. I think that supports that theory that these matches were originally 2 out of 3, because that feels like what should have been maybe like the first or the second fall of the match, not the third. I don't feel like that should have been the true ending for the match. Anyway, the minis match, it felt like a true finish. Like, yeah, that's how that match was supposed to end. This match felt like the ending just didn't have a lot of fanfare behind it, and maybe that's just to kind of like calm the crowd down from, because they were cheering for the Técnicos, and then the Rudos just end the match quickly, kind of get them upset a bit. But this is still a great match. I probably wouldn't change anything about it. Maybe make the finish a little more dramatic. Have Heavy Metal almost get out, and then maybe Fuerza Guerrera does some really bad guy stuff to submit him anyway. Anyway, let's go on ahead and get to the third match. This is the one that I have the least to talk about. And I'm not saying it's a bad match, but this is probably the one that I have the least to say. It's billed kind of like IWC versus AAA. IWC was just the name that AAA was using for some of its shows in the U.S. When it would run shows in the U.S., sometimes they'd use the IWC, International Wrestling Council, I think it stands for. First team, the IWC team, Pegasus Kid, Tito Santana, and Too Cold Scorpio. The AAA team, Jerry Estrada, La Parca, and Blue Panther. Starting off this match, La Parca, he has a very cool skull mask over his normal skull mask. He's wearing this like big skull mask with a cape on it. It looks really cool coming out to the ring. There's a really funny spot during the match which kind of starts the, I guess, overarching story of the match, where Tito Santana has Jerry Estrada in like a wrist lock near the AAA corner. So he's close enough that La Parca can tag and, get this fool out of this wrist lock. And Jerry Estrada's trying to tag in La Parca, but La Parca just keeps avoiding the tag. He's just kind of like, when Jerry Estrada keeps trying to get the tag to him, La Parca just keeps walking away from him, and he's not really interested in getting to the match against Tito Santana anymore. And this is kind of like, because before this, I think La Parca wanted to go in against Tito Santana, and Jerry Estrada just kind of jumped in. I think La Parca's like, well, you got it. You said you had it, so go ahead, buddy. Not interested anymore. And La Parca is just really funny throughout the entire match. La Parca, I love that fool. Throughout AAA, WCW, that fool was hilarious. He's really, really good at still being menacing, still being a threat, but also being hilarious. And the big story, like I was saying as well, is Parca and Estrada just are not happy tagging together. They keep having issues throughout the match. Blue Panther is kind of like the serious guy. He's like the third guy. And there's a sequence where Jerry Estrada and La Parca are trying to get the pin on Too Cold Scorpio, but like Jerry Estrada goes for the pin, La Parca breaks it up. La Parca goes for the pin, Jerry Estrada breaks it up, and they're just breaking up the pin and going for the pin back to back to back to back to back. And it's really funny and silly, but it's enjoyable. Ultimately, the rift between La Parca and Jerry Estrada costs the team the victory. And, Parca and Jerry, they stay in the ring kind of like arguing with each other. That's kind of like the story going into this. And I'll have to see if they had a program together after this, or maybe before this, because maybe that might be the actual story here and I might be missing it. But it's not a bad match. Looking at it, not a bad match, but compared to everything else on this card, it's definitely the weakest, if that makes sense. Out of everything else, every other match, this one you come out with being like, yeah, that was good, but you don't really have too much to say about it afterwards, or at least in my case. If you watch it and you have anything you want to say about it, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. And I'm very eager to hear it, because I'm always eager to hear what you guys have to say about any of these matches. Okay, match number 4. This is the best one on the card, and this is one that I am the most excited to talk about on this episode. This is a real and true banger, and what I consider to be required viewing. If you only watch one match on this entire card, it should be this one. Eddie Guerrero and Art Barr against El Hijo del Santo and Octagon. And they put on, again, an absolute classic. So Blue Panther comes out for this one to be in the corner for Santo and Octagon. And Luis Piccoli, Madonna's boyfriend, he comes out to be in the corner of Los Gringos Locos, Eddie and Art. That's the name of their stable, the name of their duo. Actually, the name of their duo was La Pareja del Terror, but then they changed that to Los Gringos Locos. And then they added members as well, like Madonna's boyfriend. Originally, it was just Guerrero and Barr. But the crowd for this match just goes absolutely insane. You hear, towards the beginning, Mexico, Mexico chants. They're deafening. Again, this is in LA, large Mexican population already. And when I watch this match, I wish that somehow I could travel back in time and experience this, because this is an atmosphere just very rarely seen, I think, in wrestling. Well, not even just in wrestling, in anything. This is just a very, very rarely seen atmosphere, and one that I would really love to experience at some point in my life. It's 2 out of 3 falls. Again, the only match on the card that is 2 out of 3 falls, and every fall delivers. There's not any throwaway falls, it feels like. The first fall ends with Eddie Guerrero. It ends with Eddie Guerrero hitting a Frankensteiner on El Santo and eliminating him, right? And with these, it's not just like you have to pin one guy. You have to pin both guys to get the fall, right? So you have to pin Santo and Octagon. They pin Santo. Santo's out. Then Eddie hits a superplex on Octagon from the top. Superplex from the top. Octagon lands right in the middle of the ring. Combo right into one of the most beautiful frog splashes in the business. Art Barr hits his frog splash, one of the best I've ever seen. And boom. The first fall is kind of fast, but it shows the intensity of the match. It shows, nobody's here to play. They want to take these masks or take this hair and go home, right? They want to get it done. First fall's out of the books, or first fall's on the books, right? Guerrero, Barr, they're up 1. So our good guys, they're down 1 fall. And one more mistake ends the match, right? So it continues. The crowd is behind our técnicos. They're cheering every time these guys do something incredible. They're cheering. There's a double dive to the outside where the crowd just, again, erupts in a massive cheer. But then Eddie and Art Barr, they pin Santo again. They isolate Santo again and get the pin. And now it's 1 versus 2. And you're like, wait a hot dog in a minute. Maybe these fools are going to lose, right? The feeling of dread starts sinking into the crowd at this point, because it's 1 versus 2, Octagon against both of Los Gringos Locos, and things are looking grim. But Octagon rallies. He hits a quick kind of a pop-up Frankensteiner, because he gets thrown to the ropes and Art Barr pops him up, and then Guerrero standing behind Barr, so Octagon lands on Guerrero, hits a quick Frankensteiner into a pin. 1, 2, 3. Guerrero's eliminated. Art Barr still has his back turned. Barr turns around, sees Guerrero has just been eliminated, but he's not quick enough to react. This fool Octagon Russian leg sweep into La Escalera, which is his finisher submission. Makes this fool tap. Octagon mounts a crazy comeback to clutch this fool. The crowd is going insane, and Octagon clutches it. Keeps them both in it. Now it's one fall against one fall. Both guys even. The score is even, and there's one left, right? And there's a side note. It is a quick side note, but during the third fall, Eddie hits a really mean La de Caballo, which is submission hold. And for everyone who doesn't know, this is kind of, it's the original camel clutch, right? So if you've seen Iron Sheik hit the camel clutch, the La de Caballo, the name is La de Caballo. It's kind of like it's like 4 words, but okay. La de Caballo, he hits it on Santo. And this move was actually created by Eddie's dad, Gory Guerrero. But it was used as the finisher for Hijo de Santo's dad, the original El Santo. So it's just really cool to see the son of the guy who created the move uses the move on El Santo. Then Octagon breaks it up. He just walks up and gives this fool Eddie a mean kick to the head, which Octagon is mainly known for his like martial arts kind of style. Like he kind of brings martial arts to Lucha Libre, which there was 2 guys who did that already earlier than Octagon, Kato Kung Lee and Kung Fu. And I think Octagon even kind of dresses like Kato Kung Lee, I'm pretty sure. Like he has the same kind of outfit. And he also has kind of the same outfit as the Great Sasuke. So a lot of the time when people see the 3 of them, sometimes they can confuse the 3 of them. But he hits the kick on Eddie and takes Santo out of the hold. And then Santo hits his own La de Caballo on Eddie, kind of like showing, your dad used it, but my dad also used, like your dad invented it, but my dad used it kind of like as his finisher. So then Santo hits his own on Eddie. And then Art Barr comes in and he breaks that one up as well. So it doesn't end with that submission hold here. And it's just a really fun homage, I think, to their fathers and that submission hold in general. But one of the craziest moments of the match happens during this third fall, right? So I think Santo hits a dive to the outside on Eddie. And the refs are over looking at the 2 of them. And they have their backs turned to the ring. Octagon comes in because they're outside the ring. In Lucha rules, somebody's out of the ring, the partner can you don't have to tag. You can just go in and keep the match going. So Octagon and Art Barr come in. And this fool, Art Barr, picks Octagon up and hits the nastiest pile driver on this fool. I mean, disgusting pile driver. And you got to think back to this period of time in Lucha Libre. The pile driver was banned. It was kind of considered a move that's like too dangerous to be used in Lucha Libre. So if the ref had seen it, that's instant disqualification. Los Gringos Locos lose their hair. But Octagon sells this pile driver like he has just taken the most massive spinal and neck trauma on the planet. After he hits it, Octagon is laying flat in the middle of the ring. Art Barr looks down at him and slaps the damn taste out of his mouth. You just destroy this man's spine, and now you're slapping him in the face. What a heel. Octagon does not move a muscle for the rest of the match. The paramedics, the medical staff, have to come out and take him out on a stretcher. And ever so often, you see the camera cut to him just laying on the entrance ramp, being worked on by the medical professionals. And as soon as he hits it, Art Barr, that's when the ref turns around after he's getting the pin. So he eliminates Octagon, and then those fools come out with a stretcher. They take him out. But it really sells the idea that the martinete, the pile driver, is a move that can kill you. It's a move that can cause permanent damage, right? You can break your neck. So it's 2 versus 1 against El Hijo del Santo. And Santos starts getting a bit of offense in against Eddie. He starts separating them a bit so, they can't just gang up on him. He throws Eddie to the outside again, and he goes to the top rope, and he hits another dive on Eddie from the top. Again, Art Barr is in the middle of the ring. Well, he tries to stop Santo from jumping off, and he does a really convincing job that he almost stops him, but he's in the ring. And remember, Blue Panther is the third watching in this match. Blue Panther slides into the ring. And he has some history with Art Barr as well, if you're not aware. Back when they were both in CMLL, Barr went by the name Love Machine. He was masked. He had a mask. He went by the name The Love Machine. And in CMLL, they got into a feud, Blue Panther and Art Barr, and they set up a lucha de apuestas. And so, mask versus mask. The match ended not by just Blue Panther just beating him, but Art Barr hits a pile driver on Blue Panther during that match, and the ref saw it, so he got disqualified, and he had to unmask, right? So there's history already, but Blue Panther, he sees the opportunity here to help Santo in Octagon and maybe get a little revenge on Barr. So he slides into the ring, and he hits his own martinete on Art Barr. He hits his own pile driver on this fool. And while he hits his pile driver in the bottom corner, it's funny to me because I don't know why it's funny, but it's just hilarious. We get a little picture-in-picture of Octagon just unconscious on the stretcher while Art Barr is getting hit with a pile driver as well. And the pile driver gives Santo enough time, slide in, and just get the pin. Just drape his arm over Barr, drape his body over Barr. 1, 2, 3. The crowd, going crazy again. It's hot. It's 1v1, right? Barr is out. 1v1. Barr is seemingly unconscious because, the martinete is a strong-ass move. So now it's just Hijo del Santo and Eddie. The comeback is real, right? He can do it. Octagon clutched the first one. Can Hijo del Santo clutch the second one? They're fighting for their lives. And, they're hitting some moves in the ring. And Eddie hits like a full Nelson suplex and kind of into a bridge, and Hijo del Santo kicks out. And then Eddie goes for it again. He puts him in a full Nelson, and he's going to suplex him into a bridge again. But Santo slips out from under him. He slips out of the full Nelson, goes under him, and kind of rolls him up, almost like the pin for a sunset flip. And he hits the pin, 1, 2, 3, and the crowd goes insane, right? The crowd goes insane. Octagon can't even celebrate because that fool is, at this point, getting wheeled out on a gurney because they took him out on a stretcher, but now they pick him up and they put him on a gurney. The pile driver has caused so much damage, and there's multiple angles. This is the part that just kind of cracks me up. There's multiple angles of this fool Octagon just getting taken out on this gurney, while in the middle of the ring, Santo's going crazy, celebrating. The crowd is going insane. Santo pulls out a Mexico flag and is like waving it around, and then it's just like cinema for a moment. Then we get a post-match segment of, this was a lucha de apuestas, so you got to pay up. Eddie and Art Barr, they start cutting each other's hair, and they're crying in the ring, and it's really emotional and really good. The shame they feel, it just elevates the match so much because it shows the consequences for Eddie basically betraying Santo, siding with Art Barr, and both of them just kind of being bad dudes. It shows the consequences of running their mouth and not being able to back it up. Santo and Octagon have taken everything from them at this point. They took their hair. They're humiliated, right? Because in my opinion, losing your hair or your mask, being shaved bald in the middle of the ring, having your mask taken off in the middle of the ring because you lost, that's real stakes, right? A championship is a championship, yeah. But like your identity, your hair, that's rough, man. That is absolutely rough. But they came in with those mullets. Los Gringos Locos came in with those mullets, and they come out, bald spots on their head because they were just cutting them with scissors. They get cut with a pair of clippers in the back, but it's just humiliating. But it just makes for such a good story, a 5-star classic. It's just, I think this match could have main evented probably any event in history. And it would have been good, and people would have been happy with it. It's just a magnificent match. Just magnificent. And I implore you, go in and watch it if you can. But one last thing I want to say about this match is, a lot of people already know this, but those of you who don't know, is this would be Art Barr's final match, because he would pass away just a couple of weeks after this event. And then after that, Eddie starts using the Frog Splash as kind of like a tribute to Art Barr. But just fantastic match. So our final match for this event, our real main event, is Conan versus Perro Aguayo in a steel cage. And this is another good one. It's hard to come on after that performance between, Los Gringos Locos and Hijo del Santo en Octagon, but Conan and Perro Aguayo do a pretty darn good job. The big story for this match is the rivalry between Conan and Aguayo. Aguayo is the man who unmasked Conan. Previously, he was working under a mask, but Conan has also taken Aguayo's hair. It's kind of like a long-time friendship, rivalry, where Conan has freshly turned against Aguayo after being on his side for a while. And this match is pretty brutal. It is a steel cage. Perro Aguayo takes a couple of nasty-looking bumps towards the beginning of the match, and he starts bleeding like 5 minutes into this thing. So, it's brutal. It's a brutal match. There's some miscommunication in this match as well. I don't know who was misinformed, but Perro Aguayo goes for a pin a couple of times during the match, and Pepe Casas, he's not in the cage, but he's outside the cage. And Pepe Casas, whenever he goes for the pin, Pepe Casas runs over and he starts counting the pin. But the English commentary, every time he does this, the English commentary team, they seem kind of confused because they are led to believe that there's no pins for this match and the only way to win is by escaping. But during the match, we see Eddie Guerrero and Luis Piccoli, Madonna's boyfriend, backstage. They're watching the match, and then at one point they run out to help Conan. First, they throw Perro Aguayo's like climbing up, and they throw some liquid in Perro Aguayo's face. I don't know what it is. The commentators say it looks like Coca-Cola, but I'm not sure. Maybe it was beer. Maybe it's just some mystery liquid. Maybe it's just some water. But they throw something in Perro Aguayo's face, and they kind of stop him from getting out of the cage. And then they throw Conan some brass knuckles. And already, like I said, Perro Aguayo's already bleeding. Like, this fool's like, he's already wearing the crimson mask, but Conan is just brutalizing this fool. Just like beating him with these brass knuckles. Just, damn, they gave this fool a damn chewy doobie for real. Just pow, 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 hitting him with these brass knuckles. And you have to think at this year, Perro Aguayo was 48 years old. So he's not a young man in this match. He's not a young guy anymore. He's nearing 50. He's 48. He's just taking these brutal hits, but he keeps getting up. And one thing that I like about this match as well is that Perro Aguayo hits his signature double stomp a lot, but the commentary kind of explains that the reason that Conan keeps getting up is because this fool, Perro Aguayo, has like been bleeding this whole time, so the stomp is just not as strong as, a fresh Perro Aguayo using it, and, And you can kind of tell Perro Aguayo's age here. He is 48. He's moving a little slower, but he still makes it look good. And if there's anybody who can make it look convincing at this age, it's Perro Aguayo, because I think that's part of his whole thing. Is he's a brutal brawler kind of guy, and he works and he moves like a brutal brawler in this match. He's not hitting Hurricane Ranas. He's not hitting Frankensteiners. He's punching, he's kicking, he's slamming, and he's stomping, right? But towards the end of this match, Perro Aguayo's just been getting beat. You're getting a lot of sympathy for this old man. And he's just getting beat. And, Conan just keeps bringing out those brass knuckles and just knocking him back down, hitting him on the head with the brass knuckles. Even if he tries to get out, Los Gringos Locos are out there. They're not going to help this fool. They're not going to let this fool get out. But we see a run-in by Los Hermanos Dinamita, which is Cien Caras, Máscara, what's that fool's name? Cien Caras, Universo 2000, and Máscara 2000, I think. I could be wrong. I might be confusing one of them right now, and I'm sorry if I am, but they rush out to kind of run off Guerrero and Spicoli, stop them from interfering even more with Perro Aguayo. And the crowd goes crazy when these fools come out. Their music hits and they rush out and they stop them. And then Conan is about to climb out, but Cien Caras kind of climbs up the side of the cage, and Conan is like, yeah, I'm about to make it out. And Cien Caras taps him on the shoulder, and punches him and knocks him back down into the cage, kind of between the ropes and the cage, that space between the ropes and the cage. And then Perro Aguayo gets behind him and almost in a Looney Tunes-like fashion grabs his head and just starts bouncing his head off the cage like a basketball. Just pow, 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 just rapidly knocking this fool into the cage, brutalizing him back. And then Perro Aguayo finally gets the chance to get over the cage. He's just completely drenched in his own blood at this point. He celebrates his win. He says, "Viva Mexico!" He's just really celebrating it. And then after the match, the camera doesn't cut off. I think the camera should have cut off, maybe celebrate the match a little, celebrate the win a little bit, then cut the show. But there's a scuffle. We see kind of like a scuffle. They don't show the fan, but they show something going on where a fan must have thrown something or said something or done something to Conan and Los Gringos Locos, because Conan jumps over the barricade, and then you see Perro Aguayo jump over the barricade too. I guess trying to stop Conan from doing something to that fool, but also kind of keep it up like, "I'll beat you up some more, Conan." And it's a really weird interaction, but it ends, and then Perro Aguayo keeps celebrating in the ring, just still covered in blood. He starts walking up the ramp, and he starts kissing women in the crowd. Women are pulling him towards him, give him a little kiss on the cheek. But again, he's just drenched in his own blood at this point. He's just drenched in it, giving these women kisses on the cheek. Their face, there's no way they didn't get any of his blood on their face, which is brave of them. But personally, I wouldn't want someone with just gushing blood out of their face to give me a little kiss on the cheek. But, to each their own, I guess. He's walking up the ramp, and then these little kids kind of meet him, and then they go back into the ring, and they celebrate some more. Again, they don't even wipe his face or anything. They could have gotten a towel, wiped his face off a little bit, maybe. But no, he's just completely still drenched in blood and celebrating the ring. I think that they should have cut the show off maybe after that first "Viva Mexico!" But maybe this is, again, just a side effect of the show finishing early, because they still had 30 minutes left to go that they just didn't use. But that's not really a complaint. It's just a funny little thing I noticed. Funny little thing that comes out of the show. It was a fantastic show overall, and I think that anyone with an interest in Lucha Libre should watch it, and, let me know what you think. I think it's really enjoyable. I think it shows the best of what Lucha Libre is. And if you only have time for one, I'm going to say it for the third time, watch the match with Eddie Guerrero and Art Barr against Hijo del Santo and Octagon. It's just fantastic. But my voice is kind of leaving me here. We've been talking for a little bit, and I think this is the end for this episode. And I want to say thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time on the next episode. See you later.